Anyone who reads novels for pleasure probably would agree with this. Sometimes you read a novel and it's out of your head as soon as you read it, you move on to the next book. But every once in a while you come across a book that just sticks with you, and Linwood Barclay's new novel Whistle is one of those. This is my spoiler-free, quick take review on that book. I sort of stumbled into Linwood Barclay on accident. I have a library app where I download a lot of audiobooks, and on long drives, I like to listen to stories as I go places. It just so happened that I stumbled across a book from an author I wasn't familiar with, Linwood Barclay, and I happened to really thoroughly enjoy it. It was one of his Promise Falls books. I read the Promise Falls books, I listened to a few of the Promise Falls books, I read some of his standalone books, but when I found out that this guy, who normally does straight realistic crime fiction and thriller fiction, when I found out he was dipping his toe into the Stephen King-like world of supernatural thrillers and horror, I couldn't wait to read this thing. The book centers around, I don't know if haunted is the right word, but evil, possessed trains. Toy trains get to be evil in this book. I have a kid who's coming up on first grade, and he loves trains. I don't think I should probably let him listen to the audiobook version of this. Apparently, in real life, Linwood Barclay is a model train enthusiast. He has a big setup in his basement. And that love of trains kind of comes through in this horror novel. The plot centers around Annie Blunt, who is a children's novelist who gets in a little bit of a personal scandal. Some unexpected tragedies occur in her life related to her profession and her personal life. She loses her husband. She's sort of down in the dumps, but she's a likable character. She's fun to read about. She takes her son, Charlie, and rents a cabin out in the woods. What could possibly go wrong? While at this rental property, they find a locked shed, but the kid gets into it anyway, and there is a model train set in there that when he puts it together, strange starts to happen. I won't go into too much detail about what that strange is, read the book, but it builds and builds and builds and builds slowly. If you want an action-packed, super fast thriller, this isn't really that book. It has a slow burn, but it's fascinating. Every step of the way, a layer is built upon a layer is built upon a layer, and you start to go crazy wanting to know what happens next. The suspense truly builds in this book, and I love that. So Annie Blunt's story takes place present day, but another good chunk of the novel takes place in 2001. And it's about a town where a new train store pops up. Nobody can quite remember when this train store opened, but people start coming in and buying model trains from, I kid you not, Mr. Choo Choo. And these two seemingly unrelated storylines will connect at the end. I don't want to tell you how, but there's tragedy and there's triumph and there's horror and there's dread. Bad things happen to good people. Very much like a Stephen King book, you have characters that are fantastic. I don't think Linwood Barclay would mind being compared to Stephen King, but this really does feel like a Stephen King novel, except there's not as much vulgarity as you would get in Stephen King, and there's not as much graphic violence. If you're looking for a novelized version of Saw, this is not it. The horror is more psychological. It's more dread. It's more, oh my goodness, what's going to happen? But at its core, it's a thriller novel. It's fun to read. There's crime, there's killing, there's plot twists and turns. It's everything you would expect from a Linwood Barclay novel. If you're a fan of his non-supernatural work, this is sort of a logical next step if you're going to go into supernatural, and it's excellent. The book has a satisfying climax, and one thing Linwood Barclay tends to do is when the story ends, that's it. The story's over. You don't get a lot of epilogue. When the book reaches its resolution, you don't get a lot of extra fluff afterwards. The book just kind of stops, and sometimes that's a little jarring. One thing about Linwood Barclay's books that took me some getting used to, but you know what? I'd rather have that than it go on too long and give us the Lord of the Rings, Return of the King, multiple endings that just never stop. So knowing when to stop is good. The best thing about the book, though, is that the characters are well written. When I write books, my favorite thing to write is dialogue. I love creating conversations. And Linwood Barclay is fantastic at that art of making these people seem like real people. They don't make dumb horror movie decisions. I'm not going to go into a whole lot of plot details about what happens beyond that, other than I give this book one of my highest possible recommendations. I thoroughly enjoyed this novel. I can't get it out of my head, and I hope Linwood Barclay writes more books in the vein of the supernatural horror. If you want to read another supernatural horror book, my novel Judas Kissed is on Amazon.com. It's a supernatural crime thriller about a psychopath who can project his consciousness forward in time and do his killing that way. If that sounds like something you want to read about, go to Amazon.com, link in the description below. Again, Whistle by Linwood Barclay, one of the best books I've read so far this year. Until next time, folks, thanks for stopping by my channel.